firstly, I'd like to thank the embassy for their continued support. Of course, Massimo Canelos for being here today. Unfortunately, we have to do a webinar instead of being in the beautiful premises of the embassy that always host us. I'm sure we're going to have one soon back. Let me, of course, thanks again the Right Honourable Mr. Barclay for being among us today. And without further ado, I leave the floor to Mr. Canelos for the introductory remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro. Good morning to everyone, and thanks for the invitation. Good morning, in particular, to Minister Barclay, and greetings from the ambassador who could not, unfortunately, be with us this morning. I will refrain from giving you a diagnostic of the effects of COVID on Brexit. I think we heard many different versions. We, as embassy, as a country, we tend to position ourselves in more perspective, forward-looking dimensions. I mean, we like to see the UK, where the UK is heading, where the UK is expected to do particularly good, and consequently, which are the areas potentially of beneficial cooperations between our two countries. And this is really the role of the embassy to foster those area cooperations. As Brexit is in the title, just allow me 30 seconds, we see Brexit very much as a fact and as a process. As a fact, well, Brexit might be a mistake. Most of economists think so. Well, I think it is irrelevant at this stage. It is time to turn a page and build for the futures. It is also in terms of bilateral cooperations. Brexit is also a process with consequences that will unfold for years. In terms of trade of goods, which is, of course, the most relevant part for the Italian economic interest, the TCA signed with the European Union represents undoubtedly a regression with respect to the customs union. Yet, the TCA is the deepest free trade areas globally. No quota, no tariffs. Most of goods can be still imported and exported, though according to new rules with additional burden and some paperwork. This is in a way unfortunate, but it is definitely workable. So it is a matter of getting used. That's why Brexit must be seen as a process, at least for a number of years. So companies will have to learn, adapt, even change the business model if that is necessary. With time, things will find a new equilibrium, partially suboptimal, but still an equilibrium. And we cannot exclude that new opportunities might emerge for both sides. I mean, both sides, I mean, Italy and UK from this perspective. On the budget, well, we live in a time of extraordinary uncertainties, and it is difficult to outline a very articulated strategy into the long future, and the Prime Minister can say more about this. Well, the budget, we see it as a very tactical piece of legislation, but with good reasons. In the past few months, we have become all again followers of Keynes. So we used to say that after there is a dull after the storm. He used that reference in a different context. Well, the economies will bounce back, but the upcoming recovery presents a lot of uncertainties, the things we don't know, the exact timing, how this recovery will play out, and what the legacy of COVID will be in terms of structural changes to markets, labor, products, etc. So it is understandable that it's more technical than a strategic budget. Let me just pick one aspect of the budget, which is, I think, is very interesting, is the super deduction for companies. This resembles very much the Italian super deduction introduced within the Industry 4.0 package post the double dip of the economy in 2012. That tool, at least for us, worked remarkably to improve the productivity of our fastest growing companies, particularly for the export markets. Well, the UK ones is limited in time, but it can be extended. And there are maybe some doubts whether it can really make a difference given the reduced depth of the UK industrial base, particularly in small and medium enterprises. I personally not worried on the increasing corporate tax rate, as I'm sure that tax rate is never really a deterrent to attract companies or investments. Much more important is the regulatory framework, the easier doing business, the predictability of rules. And on this, UK scores really high, as we all know. So I don't have particular insight on this, but it could be that the UK is preparing for the realignment on a global minimum corporate tax that, as you know, is a process that is led by the OECD. This is a topic on which UK and Italy are right now working together in the respective presidency, G7 and G20, as reconfirmed yesterday by both Minister Franco and Chancellor Sunak in the joint interview they had on Bloomberg. And this joint work extends to the cooperation for a new international tax framework with reference to digital tax, a framework that is more fit for purpose for an increasingly digitalized global economy. So concluding, very rapid, 3 areas that we think on which we are very bullish with regard to the UK, and that's we look with particular attentions. The energetic drive the UK is impressing on a free trade and a global trade system, and particularly the further trade liberalization in service, which is the area where we globally are lagging behind, and therefore where the highest margins of growth can be achieved. And this is also the most sustainable form of trade, as most services are intrinsically likely to be provided in a digital form. And again, on this, UK has a distinctive competitive advantage. The other 2 aspects, I will not go very deep on that, but we can maybe talk about them during the rest of the seminar, is the green recovery and the decarbonization of the economy, on which Italian company can indeed play an interesting enable part for the UK. And the last point is the plan for growth. I mean, the revised industrial strategies and the intention of the UK to unleash a new wave of innovation. And this is an area as Italy will look with particular interest. I remain available for any questions in the panel. Thank you.
Mr. Barclay, and to our common friend Maurizio Magani, which I thank again for him to be here today and being the one who invited you directly as well, together with myself. It's very important to have your testimony today, understanding that we are open for business together as Italy and the UK, of course. We are here, and this is a testimony of this. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you again very much. And I'd like to leave the floor to Mr. Ian Rogers, QC, for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alessandro, and thank you, Minister. In this short talk, I have the task of setting out something about the new legal relationship after Brexit, which all Italian businesses and individuals will have to come to terms with and grapple with in order to thrive and prosper. And in this short talk, all I can really do is give you a broad overview of this new legal framework, and then possibly, depending on a little bit of time, how much time we have, go a little bit deeper into some of the topics that I think those of you in business, and in particular those of you who may be general counsel in those businesses, may wish to consider in more detail. And what I've done is I've prepared some slides which go into a little bit more detail than we've got time for today. But for those of you that would like to know a little bit more, I'm very happy to email those slides to you after this talk. If you contact me on the email address on those slides, or at my chambers, Monkton Chambers, you can contact the clerks or myself. But the message generally is that the new legal framework after Brexit, which has been put in place by a range of legislative measures, really means that the road ahead is full of legal challenges. But the opportunities are there for those businesses that are prepared and that engage with these the new legal framework. And those businesses that do so will, I think, prosper, and they will prosper through engagement with the difficulties, but at the expense of those businesses that do not. Seldom in my career have I seen a new situation which presents as many legal challenges. I think this has to be the biggest change in the legal landscape in the 25 years or so I've been practicing law. It's a new set of rules which are innovative, but are completely different from anything that we've encountered before. And it requires an understanding of the old law, the EU law which governed our relationship, and now what we now call a new law called EU relations law, which governs the relationship between the UK as a third country to the EU and businesses such as those in Italy that wish to do business with the UK. And we can't ignore the difficulties ahead. We have to face up to it. So today I'll just give you a little bit of an overview through some slides, and I'll share the screen in a moment. Okay, so hopefully you can see the slides there, and here's the email address to contact me on for a copy of the slides. I've put at the top here a website which is hosted by my chambers at Moncton called EURelationslaw.com. And what you'll find here, for those of you that wish to gain a deeper understanding, is we have a toolkit page, and we have a series of blogs which are regularly updated, and you can sign up to those. So we're basically pushing out through this site a little bit of learning on how to grapple with the new EU relations law ecosystem that's been created. And this diagram here is the essence of what you need to understand if you have any problem which governs the new relationship involving your business and cross-border international relations between Italy and the UK. So we say that there are 4 pillars to this new legal relationship. The first is what we call retention. The second is the withdrawal. The third pillar is the new relationship between the UK and the EU. And the fourth pillar concerns the internal affairs of the UK. I won't say much today about the fourth pillar, which is internal affairs, save that it would be wrong for you as an Italian business to think that that would not affect you, because although that fourth pillar is essentially concerned with the internal relations, the creation of an internal market amongst the 4 nations of the UK, that in itself has significant impacts which Italian businesses will need to understand insofar as they wish to transfer goods between the constituent parts of the UK. So when the UK repatriated various powers from the EU and created the Internal Market Act and a series of other acts dealing with powers which used to be exercised by the UK, it had to construct a new system which dealt with the fact that under the devolved administrations in Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, there is always the possibility of different rules applicable to goods, services and professional qualifications, disrupting the internal market of the UK. And the question then arose as to how to manage those potential divergences in a situation in which the UK has made commitments to the EU regarding its own rules on goods and professional qualifications and potentially in the future services. And so that has required a whole new area of law to be constructed, and that becomes the fourth pillar. The third pillar, as I've said, concerns the new relationship, and that's essentially where you need to get to grips with the trade and cooperation agreement, which is enacted by UK law. The withdrawal part of the pillar concerns the withdrawal agreement and the Northern Ireland Protocol. I won't say anything today about Northern Ireland, save to say that obviously one needs to understand the Northern Ireland Protocol very, very carefully. and the position in Northern Ireland is simply unique in that in certain respects, aspects of European Union law continue to apply as a result of what has been agreed in the protocol. The retention aspect is the one we'll talk about in the next few minutes. Now, this effectively goes back to a problem I first thought of when I first gave a talk on Brexit, which was back in about 2013, 2014, when it was still a germ of an idea. And I spoke then at the Central European University in Budapest. And I gave a talk to a group of policy officials, lawyers and academics then. And I tried to foresee what kind of problems and what kind of architecture would need to be put in place if the UK did vote for Brexit. And one of the central issues that I saw ahead, which would need to be grappled with, was the need for, firstly, to understand what happens to all of the EU law, which was part of the UK law through the European Communities Act after Brexit. What happens to that gap which needed to be filled? So the retention part of the legal framework deals with that problem. What then happens in relation to the UK law that gets, the EU law that gets copied into UK law? And how do we interpret that new law which is copied across, particularly when, for example, the Court of Justice of the European Union then rules on, for example, the meaning of a word in a EU rule that has now become part of the UK law after the UK has left. And that kind of problem seemed to me to throw up lots of difficulties. And essentially, what the new legal framework does is to put forward in a coherent whole, a whole series of innovative new legal rules of interpretation and rules which explain how the EU law is effectively preserved and copied over into the UK law, and how the UK and the UK courts in particular can deal with future changes to that law, given that the purpose of Brexit was to restore freedom to change laws. So that's essentially what retention is all about. I say here, retention is about taking a picture. Essentially, we start, the whole concept of the new legal framework starts with a snapshot, so a photograph, if you like, of what EU law was at the implementation period's completion day, which was on the 31st of December 2020. Now, at that point, the European Communities Act, which previously provided what we call the conduit pipes through which EU law had effect in the UK, that was repealed, and that would have left a huge gap in UK law where EU law used to sit. The concept of retention and retained EU law ensures that there is legal certainty in the UK after that moment of time when the UK implementation period of Brexit ended. That provides legal continuity and certainty for businesses. That's the broad concept of retained EU law. We can break it down into about 5 categories of retained EU law. The first is those EU laws which are derived from EU law, but are actually implemented in domestic regulations. So, for example, those of you familiar with part-time workers legislation, that's an EU directive which had to be implemented in Italy and the UK and all other member states. The UK implemented it through what's called the part-time workers regulations. Now, at the point of the end of the implementation period of Brexit, that then became, the part-time workers regulations then became part of retained EU law. So it was frozen in time at that point. Similarly, direct EU regulations, those also became part of UK law. And similarly, the concept, as some of you might be aware, particularly if you're general counsel, of directly effective rights. So, for example, where the EU treaty provided a right that a citizen could rely upon automatically under EU law, such as the right to equal pay, that also became, at that point of time, part of UK law under the concept of retained EU law. So therefore, there was continuity from one moment of time to another. Then we have the concept of retained case law, which I'll talk about in a minute because that's a bit more complicated. And to some extent, which I can't go into in detail here, to some extent, there are retained general principles of EU law under Section 6 of the European Union Withdrawal Act 2018, which sets out all of these rules, such as the European concept of proportionality. Retained case law requires a little bit more thought, and the retained case law can be broken down into retained domestic case law and retained EU case law. And to find out more about that, you need to go to Section 6 of the EU Withdrawal Act 2018. But the critical point in time here is, in relation to EU case law, that's Court of Justice case law, the only EU case law that gets copied over and frozen into UK law is where a judgment of the Court of Justice was handed down before IP completion date. So that's the 31st of December 2020. So that then becomes part of UK law in relation to anything to which Section 2, 3 and 4 of the Act applies. There's an interpretation provision in Section 6.3, which I don't have much time to go into, but have a look at the slide here. And then I've suggested here that there's a four-stage test that the domestic court will have to go through going forward to ask itself certain questions about retained EU law. Firstly, in a case that comes before a UK court, it will have to ask, has the retained EU law been modified? Because the Act provides for ministers and devolved administrations, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, to modify retained EU law, subject to certain conditions. Secondly, if there has been a modification, the court will have to ask, is it still consistent with the intention of the modification to interpret the rule in accordance with retained case law? Thirdly, is there any relevant retained domestic case law? So that's decisions of the UK courts in relation to EU law. And fourthly, is there any relevant EU case law? So that's decisions of the Court of Justice up to the 31st of December 2020. Now, the Supreme Court in the UK and the Court of Appeal and some other tribunals will not be bound by the retained EU case laws. So the decisions of the Court of Justice, which we always used to say, and as in Italy, have primacy, they are supreme, will now, in certain respects, they will not be binding before the highest courts in the UK. And that obviously means that for Italian businesses, you need to be aware that in the UK, there now may be divergences between what was EU law applicable in the UK and then the new UK law, which begins in the same place as EU law, but over time can be expected to diverge as the UK exercises its freedom to make different rules and different provisions from the EU. And so you'll need to get to grips with Section 6 of the 2018 Act that I've referred to, which sets out to what extent the higher courts will depart from old Court of Justice case law, but then also tackles this problem of what happens if, for example, a word in a provision which was a component of EU law gets copied over and retained EU law into UK law. What happens if the Court of Justice, at a later date in the future, gives a judgment which is directly relevant to what is now UK law? but which may be exactly the same form of words as existed in the EU law. I know it's quite difficult to get your head around it, but these are now fiendishly difficult legal situations which are going to crop up again and again and again. And if you're a lawyer or if you're a business dealing with the UK in relations to trade relations between Italy and the UK, you are going to have to watch out for these very, very difficult problems. And as we progress forward in time, one can expect that the UK retained version of the EU law is going to change from EU law as it was. So I'll stop there. I do have some more slides which you can have a look at a little bit later, which really go into an aspect of the trade and cooperation agreement. The other slides deal with a topic which I know other speakers are going to talk about, and that concerns customs arrangements. So I won't go into that topic now, given that there are going to be other speakers talking about this. But if you are interested, then by all means, please do request the slides, send me an email, and you can take a look at the slides and take it from there. So I've set out here some rather interesting materials on issues which I know a lot of you in business will be really keen to know about, which concerns rules of origin, how to satisfy them, and some of the real problems that traders are experiencing, not just from Italy, but all kinds of traders in dealing with the new customs arrangements and the problems of rules of origin as they are in relation to a situation where we know there are no tariffs and quotas, but of course, if you have goods which have to meet certain rules of origin, then that is not the case. That's a really, really difficult topic, and I know some of the speakers are talking about, but I'll end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much. As always, you've been very, very precise to deliver this difficult speech and topic. And let me take this opportunity to thank you as well, because you've been my supervisor in the journey to become a barrister. So I must say that it was very, very important for me to work with you. And we are just waiting for the final call now, which should happen by July. So thank you again for your time, your support for me to achieve such a great honor and important role. So without further ado, I'd like to go to my presentation, which of course will speak about, in summary, the budget, but not only the budget. What I found quite important to explain is that in a nutshell, I hope you can see my presentation. In a nutshell, we're talking about something that looks like a trivial pursuit games. You're talking about COVID-19, Brexit 20, budget 21. So what happened in the last 2 years and 3 years or so? A lot of things happened that are all in particular have an element of an impact in the economy of the UK, of course, which is the first slide I'd like to present to you today. How is the economy? The Chancellor was very clear. The economy shrunk due to COVID by 10%. The level of the economy will rebound, of course, but it's important to understand that will take time. And also it's very important to understand that since the world war, so since space-time, this has been the record of 355 billion UK has to borrow. So there is a borrowing total of 234 billion in 2021-22. So a huge amount. And what has been the presentation of Mr. Barclay about the COVID incentives, the follow, the extension to help employees, businesses, and of course to help and support self-employed to the economy has been also the major part of the budget. In the budget, especially for the individuals, we haven't seen many changes. We've seen an increase of taxation, of course, by freezing the allowances. But we haven't seen the change in taxation. We have seen some help to the businesses, to people that want to purchase a property with the stamp duty holidays, with the help of government schemes. We've seen also something about inheritance tax, which I'm going to talk about later on, but nothing very much that's changed. The major changes were in the taxation for businesses, where basically we see an increase of taxation, but at least, as was seen before, there was a fundamental reason why we need to increase tax to serve businesses and 12 businesses, 12 to the economy to recover. So the taxation will be higher because we're talking about 25% in 2023 above 250,000 profit for businesses, or 19% the current rate for businesses, small companies with profit less of 50,000. So again, it's an increase of taxation, but there is a need to increase tax to help the economy. And on the other side, as was mentioned before, there's been a great push for investment. So basically a reduction of taxable profit by 130% if you were to invest in a business. The same is for VAT on hospitality and business rates, which I'm going to talk later on, and visa schemes for and to attract new people, people that want to work in the UK. Given the restrictions, visas are now also important for European, not only not European. So this is a competition that we are talking about. A new scheme of visa are important to help startups in the new scenario. So without further ado, my point today, given also the time, is about what we have seen in the budget dealing with Brexit. Not much, actually. Never been mentioned once, the word of Brexit, but we've seen something. Yes, of course. We've seen some reference to the English free ports, some reference to the finance. I'm sure that we're going to talk about the lack of the passporting could cause an issue for the UK, but the UK is saying that it's opening for more capital and to what is called the SPACs, for having more capital investment in the UK. But what has been more important for me today to speak is about the presentation in the public paper that has been published yesterday, the so-called common paper on the future of tax policies. Let me go online and to show you this, if I am able to do it. Should be in a second. No, I had the problem. Sorry about that. Yeah, so tax policies and consultation, this is my topic, of course, and we were expecting this. This is saying that there's going to be changes in tax, in policies. So what we've seen for corporate tax will happen also for individuals, but will happen also in the system of simplified taxation. So in the paper of yesterday, was yesterday public paper, it's been very clear that they want to modernize tax administration. They want to make things more easy for taxing people and to get taxation a simplifier system for the businesses, not only for the businesses, for individuals as well. And of course, what they are trying to say, the Chancellor, of course, try to make clear that there is a modernization of the UK, also making tax digital or making better way of paying tax, also in terms of inheritance tax, which is something that we are talking about at step level. My society, the Society of Trustees, State Practitioner, there will be a call of changing on inheritance tax in the UK to make it simpler, to make it probably something to help as well to recover for the economy. We have to see, but this is probably the policy that we are reading through this document. Of course, there's clamping down on tax avoidance, again, which is important to support the economy. And finally, a fundamental point, which is really important to businesses, is there will be a review on business rate system. This is something that we're going to see in autumn this year, and probably will be the most important policy for what you have seen through COVID issues, that a lot of business rates, a lot of people had to pay business rates through COVID and were impossible to pay. And the level of this needs to be reformed for sure for businesses to strive. So I think that the review of this to simplify taxation, to help businesses from the budget is an important one. And I believe that this is something that is the major message that we have seen in the budget. To finish, and to go back to what also my colleague Silvia Bocchetti will speak about, what happened with the UK and Europe? Of course, the deal that's been struck on 24th of December 2020 has simplified a few things, but hasn't solved everything. So there are many points that where without friction, they see frictions now, starting from the visa, starting to trade on goods, starting on road transport. And of course, I try to summarize on these slides that are available to you. We're gonna send it to you, of course, at the end of the seminar, a sort of a checklist for individuals that they have to deal with Brexit. Things that have changed for living in the UK, work in the UK. There is a need of a permit now, a visa permit also for European candidates. To study is no longer possible to apply for Erasmus program. To travel is no longer free. You need to travel with days, 90 days in 6 months. To invest in the UK, there's been few things that have changed in the UK for investing, for corporate, for individuals. And of course, from the UK going to Europe, we see the restriction due to COVID, but there are restrictions due to Brexit. The same is happening for corporate people investing in the UK with their corporate. They need to be aware of what we have heard from the barristers before, of making sure the contract, the custom procedures are not just tax issues. There's legal issues that needs to be dealt with. On the VAT declaration, of course, my colleague will explain later on products. It's important to bear in mind that the conformity of CE will change in UK CA. Workers, again, important to know you need a permit to come to work in the UK with the base of the immigration point system. Totally different than before. And of course, taxation. No longer the UK can apply the directives and vice versa. So you can apply the treaties, but of course there is a different kind of taxation. So without further ado, I'd like to leave the floor to Silvia Bocchetti, but to say in a nutshell that I think that on the UK side, we see a lot of work for businesses, individuals to help through COVID and to deal with Brexit. And I think that we're gonna see many to come. But I understand from what Mr. Barclay said and from Mr. Canello said, that the relationship is going between UK and Italy very smoothly. And this is a very important message for businesses, I believe, that we are still here, we can trade. Of course, things are different, things are maybe a bit more complicated, more costly, but we are still open for business on both countries and we can strive together. Thank you very much for your time. Silvia, I leave the floor to you.
Hello, thank you, Alessandro, for the introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here today and to speak with you in the next 15 minutes about UK import and export at the light of the new changes from 1st January 2021 and following the end of the transition period. Right, my presentation will be through slides. So in a moment, I'll share the screen with you. There we go. I'm taking into consideration that my time available today is not, is not that much to go in deep into technicality. And so I will assume that you have chosen to use an intermediary to make customs declaration for your business. And the Northern Ireland Protocol will not be examined today. So it could be any time, any other opportunity to go in deep, I'll be very pleased to. During my presentation, I'll be dealing with, go through the main 3 headings, which will be shown in the next slide. And so I'll talk about the trader checklist, customs duties, and import VAT. So for the trader checklist, I'll just go through a few essential notions and responsibilities, which just could help you to be prepared and avoid any customs delay. So I would start with the first one, with the ERI number. Perhaps you already heard about that. And that's a unique identification number. and the business needs to apply for valid URI number starting with GB in order to move goods between Great Britain and other countries. If you are thinking about URI number starting with XI, that will be required if you move goods between Northern Ireland and other non-EU countries. You also would need an URI number starting with XI if you make a declaration or get a customs decision in Northern Ireland. Next one is going to be commodity code. So commodity code is obviously essential because it determines the customs duties, other charges levied on your goods, or any restrictions that may apply. So it must be included in your import declaration. Next one, Incoterms. So these terms will provide clear rules about shipping and delivery responsibilities. I know they've been a little bit overlooked before Brexit, but actually they should really be understood and written down, because through Incoterms there is a clear understanding of the risk of and who is going to be the importer of records and who's going to get the responsibility of payment for customs duty and import VAT. I thought about bringing in an example. I think Incoterms are even more. I'll just consider the first and the last one. The first for X work and the last one for delivery duty paid, to see that when it's X work, what happens is that the goods are there available at the seller's premises, and it will be the buyer who will have to import the goods into the country. And at the opposite edge, you're going to have a DDP where goods will be delivered at a named place in the country of the buyer. So it's going to be the seller to be responsible for importing goods into the country. Let me go through the last notion, value of goods. So you need to tell it to Mercy the value of your goods, because you declare of the goods you're declaring, sorry, and when you're declaring your goods for import, they need to calculate the customs duties, so they need a value. Now, usually the transaction value method applies, and in that case, you need to provide the invoice price. In case the movement of goods is not because of a sale, but just because it's a consignment, then you can consider other methods like the value of identical goods in preferential order, value of similar goods, selling price in EU, production cost. So we're done with the first headings. Let's go through the second, customs duties. We all know that from 1st January 2021, UK global tariffs are in place and apply to all goods imported in UK. This will apply unless an exception applies, and that will be the case for EU-UK Trading Cooperation Agreement, of course. The key element of the agreement are tariffs. Well, goods originating in EU-UK free trade area will not be subject to import tariffs or other customs duties. So that means that zero tariffs are actually subject to the rule of origin, which has been talked about. And it's easy to think that it's going to be an easy job when goods are wholly obtained in one country. So I think it's going to be more challenging when this is not happening. And the agreement will invite to consider a qualifying level of processing. So you will assess the proportion of the product's components, which are inputs, and along with where the goods have been assembled. The agreement provides also with relief. So when goods have been reimported, that means that previously exported and then again re-imported into the country, but they didn't get any origin, you can claim a relief. How to practically claim a relief? Two actions. You claim the preference on the customs declaration and you declare that you hold prove that goods actually meet the rules of a region. That means the HMRC can in any time conduct a verification. So you need to be able to provide evidence. And so you're invited to maintain all relevant documentation for at least 4 years. What proof of origin will be available? One could be the importer's knowledge. So the importer collects all sufficient documented information to prove the origin. Or it's going to be a statement in origin made out by the exporter. And this last case is not going to be a document, as you could think, but it's a prescribed text. An example in the next slide. Here I have highlighted the prescribed text needs to go on a commercial document, and I have highlighted the exporter reference number, which is going to be for an UK exporter, it's going to be the ERI number. For an EU export, it's going to be the REX registration number, which is mandatory to be put on this text when the consignment value is going to be over the 6,000 euros. We had a case with a client who omitted this information on the statement of origin, and I had to pay full customs duties. So we should pay attention to this. I thought good to just present a few special procedures, just because they give you the chance to consider any logistic arrangement following the opportunity to delay or reduce import duties of VAT. Because of time available, I'll just go through quickly. Inward processing for goods that you just need to process or repair in the other country. Customs warehousing, you only pay when your goods leave the warehouse. Common transit, when goods are not destined to UK, it's just going to be transit. Temporary importation, you import goods and you're going to re-export the next 2 years. And then return goods relief, which is already been discussed 2 slides earlier. And it's connected. We've seen it on a trade agreement with the EU. So let me just introduce you a tool which will facilitate customs procedures, as it will allow you to defer payment of most of the charges on a monthly basis through a direct debit. Most charges like customs duties, excise duty, and import VAT if you're not using postponed VAT accounting. How to get a DDA? Business should apply. You apply with HMRC to open a DDI. When HMRC will authorize you, they will give you a deferment account number, and that number needs to be communicated to your intermediary. You should also apply for a guarantee waiver from HMRC. Consider that usually HMRC will require comprehensive guarantee. Okay, so that was the second part. I'm just moving to the third, and we will discuss about import VAT. So when do you pay import VAT? It's for all goods sent from outside the UK into Great Britain, or outside the UK and EU into Northern Ireland. Now let's look at how accounting for VAT. It all depends on your business, if UK VAT registered or not. If not, then you will have to pay import VAT at customs, but you will not be able to reclaim it back. If you are registered, you got 2 options. You can pay the import VAT at customs, but you will be able to recover VAT only after you receive the certificate C79. The other option is that you use a postponed VAT accounting, PVA. That means that you will account for VAT on your VAT return, and on the same VAT return, you claim back the VAT, so the impact on your cash flow will be nil. Changes. The government has introduced changes to import VAT. this is a very complex area, I must say, so we'll not go through or really in deep into technical items. Sufficient to say that the two measures depend on where goods are located at the point of sale, when the title transfers. So if goods are located outside the UK, the measures will apply for all businesses. If the goods are placed in the UK, then the new measures will apply only to overseas sellers that are selling through an OMP. What's an OMP is the online marketplace. And when the online marketplace is involved, when it facilitates the sale. In the second case, we need to say that goods have already been imported by the seller into the country. So, what changes? This is a really summary on the major changes. There's one case when the consignment of goods value of goods is below the £135. So in this case, there will be no import VAT paid at customs, and VAT will be charged on a sales invoice. So it's going to be a supply VAT and not an import VAT. However, goods, when getting to the customs, they will need to present customs declaration, the intermediary, and a full size invoice needs to be prepared by the seller. Other case is when your customer is a business and is VAT registered. So you are in the case where goods are located outside the UK, the consignment value is below the 135, and in that case, the reverse charge will apply. So it will be your customer dealing with VAT. Last case already hinted is the OMP, online marketplace involved. So is involved when he's facilitating the sale. And in that case, the online marketplace is responsible for collecting and accounting for VAT. Right, so what are the implications for overseas sellers? For sellers selling to UK customers, but not established in UK. For them, there will be no VAT threshold. That will mean that they will have to register for VAT as soon as they start making sales in the UK, or the case seen earlier, you're selling goods in a consignment for value below 135 directly to UK customer, and you have to charge VAT on your sales invoice. So that case, you do to be registered for VAT. Just allow me a few quick hints to UK export. You need a customs declaration. You need to check if you have to present licenses or authorizations before exporting. You need obviously an EURI as seen, number starting with GB. VAT registered business can zero rate the sale, but you have to retain evidence for 6 years in order to prove that goods really left the UK. So that was all. So we're going through the trader checklist. We've seen a few notions, essential notions and responsibilities. We have seen customs duties under the light of the trade agreement. And we also discussed about the duty deferment account, how it can be useful for and beneficial for businesses. And finally, we discussed about the import VAT, how to account very briefly, and what changes the government put into the new rules. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much, Silvia. Thank you. So we finished the first part of the seminar. Now I leave the floor for the panelists and the round table. Thank you again.
Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Luigi Belluzzo. I'm more than pleased to welcome our 5 guests from different sectors. I will introduce you very briefly each one, and then we will do a sort of roundtable also through the video. Well, first of all, let's welcome Emanuele Preve from Risogallo. Hi, Emanuele. And Risogallo is a 6th generation family business actually sparking the culture of riso and risotto throughout the world. And being born in Verona, everybody knows that Alessandro and myself, we love risotto. So therefore, thank you, Emma, for being here. The second one is Andrea Celia from Max Mara Fashion Group. The group has been founded in 1951, is now in 105 countries, and it's one of the leading Italian fashion brands and group. Thank you very much, Andrea, for being with us. Then I go to Luca Botter. Thank you, Luca, for being with us. Botter is the third generation company from Venice, more than 90 years old, the Italian leader for Italian wine worldwide. Thank you very much, Luca, for being with us. Then I go to Natalino Mongillo of EOS Investment Management. Natalino and his family founded the group. Is a financial group specializing in alternative asset solution and sector, with offices in London, Luxembourg, and Milan. And last but not least, to you, Maurizio, thank you very much also for facilitating Mr. Barclay to be with us today, this morning. Your group, Tratos, has been founded by an Italian in Argentina after World War II, and it's a very fascinating history. You two, you are a family business, and Tratos is one of the worldwide leader in cable manufacturing. So, as you can appreciate, in the tradition of Belluzzo workshop with the embassy, since the start, when we started in 2008 in London, it's very important for us to have also the voice of the entrepreneurs and the managers, and we have decided to have different sectors. So the food, the fashion, the wine, finance, and manufacturing industry. So my first question is basically the same question to everybody, so I will rotate the question. Is, of course, the impact. It's a very peculiar year, as my brother Alessandro said, you know, it's 2019, 2020, 2021, it will be in the history books. And the impact of Brexit, which, as we have learned early this morning, it's a fact and a process. So we tend to say, okay, Brexit is done. On the other side, COVID, we are currently in a pandemic situation. Some countries are achieving better, others are a little bit slower, but we hope that everybody will be out soon during or after summer. And so the question is about Brexit, COVID, the reopening in the UK, of course, focusing to the UK, and also focusing on your sector. So what do you think has happened? How was the situation, Emma Prede from Risogallo?
Well, for us, has been, as you know, for the grocery, has been a very good period because we have a big increase in the retailer, while on the other side we had a big decrease on the food service. In our specific market, probably also in others, the retailers had problem to import goods because there was a big increase on the volume, and so the producer of, in our example of rice, prefer to give advantage to the brand. So the retailer has problem importing private label products. So we as a brand has managed to increase our base of customer, and now the aim of 2021 is to keep this customer with us, and so to keep it. We see a little decrease now in the market, but also, on the other hand, the food service begin to make some orders, so probably there will be a compensation now in the next months in the UK. As you know, it's going well now, so it's going better than other countries. Other countries are still with a bad moment in the food service, while probably UK will begin early than others. Regarding Brexit in specific, we had a lot of fear that there was some duties without a hard Brexit. At the end, there has been not. So we had a few costs, but in reality, not too much. There was some bureaucracy more to do, and there was some issue in the beginning with the logistic, but apparently now is solved. So at the end was nothing so problematic.
Thank you very much, Emanuele, Emma. Thank you very much. And what about the fashion world, Andrea?
Good morning again, everyone. Unfortunately, the picture is not as good as the one mentioned by Mr. Preve. 2020 has been hopefully once in a lifetime year, because these two extraordinary factors like COVID and Brexit have heavily impacted the business, especially the retail industry, in two very different ways. First of all, COVID was not predictable. It happened overnight, not giving anyone enough time to prepare. And we saw the effects of it right away, since day one of the first lockdown. Whereas for Brexit, we have been given more time to adapt, at least to the idea, if not as to the content of it. And the effect will be seen, I think, in the medium to long term, more than at the very beginning. To break it down and articulate a little bit further, going back to COVID, for fashion and retail specifically, there has been two nature of factors: endogenous and exogenous factors. So exogenous factor, obviously the lockdown and the restrictions that have not allowed players to be in touch with their client in the usual way they've always done. Endogenous factors related to how the client base has changed, our life has changed, and as a result, our needs, desires, lifestyle as customer is imposing new rules for the players in the industry that have to adapt to the so-called new normal. Obviously, this is having a terrible impact. Just recently, I was reading that in the last quarter of 2020, 67,000 jobs were lost in the retail industries, and that in 2020 alone, 17,000 stores have shut down. Most of these relates obviously to the strength of a company, of a group, of a retailer, and how they have been able to adjust. But the figures that we are reading on a daily basis are really gloomy, let's say. If we look at Brexit instead, I think that each and every one of us has hoped for the best and prepared for the worst. Specifically, we were hoping for a frictionless Brexit with no or minimal custom, with no duties and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, the picture is very diverse depending of the different industries. And for instance, fashion and retail are faced with duties on non-preferential goods, which in a way or in the other represent a good portion of every store assortment. So the impact is real and is quite, I would say, layered and complex. Particularly what we see is an impact on the logistics setup of companies that had to be able to build logistics operation in the country, or to obviously benefit from logistic operator support. Custom is a chapter of its own with its rules and specific elements. So each and every company that is importing has to use a custom broker in order to make the whole process smoother. The effect have impacted also the administrative and financial side of companies that have to track from an administrative perspective new processes and procedures, then themselves has to be reflected in IT systems and setup. So if we look at Brexit, it's really about a cascade effect that starts with something very small and then has multiple implications that makes more complex for a company to operate and to deal with it. Even from a commercial standpoint of view, something that relates to Brexit is, for instance, in fashion and in retail, the tax-free abolishment for international customers. And although it just represents a portion of retail businesses in the UK, once again, the impacts of it are very, very deep and very strong. If we just think that based on some analysis that have been published in the second half of 2020, the tax-free abolishment will result in more than 1 million tourists less starting from 2021 and onwards, with a yet again a cascade effect on spending, because this will translate in less than £1 million spent in the luxury and fashion items, which itself then will have an even greater effect in terms of job losses, because this will impact not only the fashion and retail industry, but the leisure and hospitality industry in general and as a whole. So in a nutshell, the impact of these two extraordinary events have been pretty heavy. As I said, companies that had built along the time to face these sort of challenges are trying to react with a flexible and agile behavior and approach, obviously trying to be as resilient as possible to all of these different shocks.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Actually, your sector is quite peculiar for this double crisis. Then we move to the wine industry, Luca, and again, what's the impact of Brexit and COVID for your company, which is very large, as everybody knows, and your sector, if you can comment on wine.
Yeah. Thank you again for the invitation. I mean, the COVID impact on the wine business, on wine sector, I mean, is probably very similar to the food sector, where the companies had a very strong retail presence. I think they've been benefiting by the pandemic because of the fact that the hospitality was and the restaurants were closed. So all the consumption were going through the retailers and the online, and wherever the businesses were stronger on the hospitality sector, on restaurant, on trade, or HoReCa, how you want to call them, I think they've been, probably very badly impacted by the pandemic. I mean, in our case, it's a bit of a mixed situation. So I think we're quite strong in the UK on the on-trade sector, and that has had, unfortunately, a very negative effect on our export numbers. The retailers have not been able to make up for the loss that we had on the on-trade. Talking about Brexit and the wine industry, I think maybe today is a bit early to quantify the impact in negative or positive effect on the wine industry. I mean, there is certainly numbers of costs that will have an impact in the future. And the main one is basically, as your colleague was explaining at the beginning, on the conditions of thermal conditions of export. So in our industry, we normally sell wine ex cellar, so from the winery to the cellar. So the cellar will organize themselves, the transport and all the documents. And from Brexit, actually the wine industry, the UK industry associations has pushed all the importer to ask for FCA conditions, so free carrier conditions. So that means that the exporter, so the winery, has to bear the cost of the paperwork for the export. And that's in terms of cost, is not so high for somebody that is exporting a limited amount of orders per year. But when the orders are exceeding a certain numbers, I think the cost for the company it's considerable. The other impact today, but is also, again, maybe too early to say, I mean, there is certainly a cost of transport that has an impact quite heavily on transport. So our customers are paying more to ship goods, but is also, I think, also related to the pandemic. So I think we will need to wait a bit to see, once the markets get more stable, to see what will be long term the transport costs for transporting from Italy to the UK. At the moment, there is a lack of containers worldwide. So I mean, and this is impacting also, of course, anyone that is shipping via sea, or via train. And that's, but we will have to actually assess the problem in the next few months.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, Luca. Now let's move to finance, Natalino Mongillo, another sector, and very curious to know how it's going and what are your forecasts.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this really interesting webinar. Look, in relation to Brexit, I have to say that in the past few months, we haven't really seen a big change. I think a lot of the impact was absorbed in the previous years. So it gave us a bit of time on that respect. With regards to the main financial players, lawyers, consultants we are talking to, mostly are in the UK and continue to operate from here. Of course, there's been a big uncertainty which has been shared by the regulatory framework, since Europe has not actually given equivalence to our services. So for anyone like us that wants to continue marketing to Europe, needs to strengthen their position in Europe. And this is something that, for example, we have done as well. So hopefully there will be some updates and development on that side, which will make the sector much more efficient. On the pandemic side, well, here there's been a very, very transformational effect and has created a lot of new and different priorities among market players. For example, investors, we are seeing them increasing a lot their attention into the environment protection, into the climate change, into any ESG, so environmental, social, governance topics. It's almost like investors are really taking the time to consider the impact of their investments into the economy, on the broader economy. There's been also some regulatory changes here. For example, in Europe, it came into force from March, the SFDR, which is a new regulation that requires financial market participants and advisors to evaluate and disclose sustainability-related topics. We have done it. For example, we have recently launched our second renewable energy fund, which is also renewable infrastructure fund too, and this is focusing on new projects into the renewable energy space without the government incentives. And we have made a lot of efforts in order to comply under the regulation and therefore being qualified as a product that promotes environmental and social characteristics. So I think also the COVID-19 has really catalyzed, if I may say, a support into the green economic recovery. Also, as Mr. Barclay was saying before, so there's been a substantial growth of attention into the sustainable real assets, from energy to housing to forestry, and this type of assets have been also proven to be more resilient and less volatile compared to the equity market. So it's giving a double edge of interest. And then other new markets like the technology, the healthcare, which of course are driven by this new scenario. So in conclusion, what we are seeing and what we need to see, and we think is going to be also a future trend, is a commitment from different market stakeholders to use this really particular and historic opportunity to transition to a more sustainable and low carbon economy, and hopefully this is going to be the case.
Thank you, Natalino. And now we move to the industry and to you, Maurizio, with the same question, if you can give us your view, sorry.
Thanks. Thank you, Luigi. The ecosystem in which Tratos has been is growing it's an ecosystem and more is a culture of innovation. So basically, the challenge that we had in front on during the last few years, the emergency, the pressure, the innovation, was our common background. So it make no really our story is not really the story of everyone in our common sector. In fact, we have never stopped one single moment to produce and to deliver our products. Also because even today, we had a webinar through a different way, not in person, but without a cables, without a power, without an energy, you cannot have this kind of connectivity. So a lot of time during this webinar, we have heard why all the world have react in totally different way and against the history of the human being in front of the COVID pandemic. So normally what was happened was just that the economy will never been stopped, even during the Black Plague or during the Hong Kong in 1967. The reason is because there is technology available. There is a possibility to transfer some of the business. There is possibility to transform some of the business. And this, on the basement of that technology, there is, of course, my industry and the industry of the cable manufacturer. So we have not been affected by COVID. However, we have been affected by COVID by a different way, in our style, in our life, in our city, and also in explain to different government, because on the beginning of the pandemic, even Tratos is one of the part of not the contingency plan of United Kingdom. So basically, we cannot be shot, not even during an act of war. The Italian government, for example, I forget that there is this European contingency plan. And so on the beginning, on this exactly period last year, the Italian government have removed all the cable industry from the Ateco code. And what was happened was very funny, because on the Sunday, we should have closed the company. And of course, on Monday, when they realized the big mistake, because basically telecom, Enel, all the utilities around Europe, all the ports, because the port, you move goods, but that cranes needs a cable to be moved. The defense, they realized that all of that, they didn't have any possibility to carry on to do their job. They inform all the prefecture and all the structure, and also with the UK government support to make pressure to make clear that that was a European plan of contingency, not only a specific particular situation for Tratos. So we have kept the company open. So we had this, as has been said from the other speakers during this panel, because no one were expecting the COVID, the majority of the disadvantage that we had as industrialists was due to the bureaucratic system in all countries. I don't critique Italy or UK or all Europe, however, act in the same way. And they're very good. They have been very good also to imitate the same mistake, exactly the same. For Brexit, as I said, we no make a test, because as we are inside of UK and we are outside of UK as a manufacturer. You know that Tratos was a very clear vision in 2015 when they called that referendum, that the victory was absolutely on the referendum. It was a quite clear mood, even though, and so we made a large investment in Knowsley, in the northwest of England, to have a national manufacturer. We have seen a lot of, I was very interested to see Silvia Bocchetti presentation, because we have seen a lot of the change. She was very good to summarize in a very simple way, some that, in particular, a few months ago, there were a chaos. I remember that I was receiving goods in UK from same goods. That some that were paying advanced VAT. Some of them, they didn't even pass to the custom duty. Some others, they just have to the deferment of VAT. So it was like, look, it was, and the very nice response from the expert on the other side says, we are waiting with the truck stop on the customer is we are waiting instruction. What does it mean we are waiting instruction? I need the products inside of that truck, otherwise I cannot produce inside of my factory. So there was a lot of disruption also because, again, it was a last minute deal on the 27th of December. It's going to change. As I repeat, for us was very simple. We export 80% outside the world. So for us was only to take Britain from Europe and move to export. That was what we have just done. So we were doing the same paper for China, for United States, for Australia, Russia. We are also doing now for United Kingdom. But for sure, there is one element that I don't like it. And as I said, the big issues that we got it in COVID, as in Brexit, is the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic system, and also the stupidity, the human stupidity behind that. I don't like this attitude of vaccine war that is started to implement it. I don't like this tone for between the two countries. I don't like to be more royalist than the king. We are all members of the family business. And we know what doesn't mean that no one can be more king than the king. You cannot be more royalist than the king. That means absolutely something that you can't do it. And to be honest, this attitude is what really scare in the way that they can really affect the culture and the relationship between the two countries. I was very pleased between Steve and what Massimo Carneros from the embassy have said on behalf of the ambassador. And of course, what Steve said regarding our two relationships. What I've seen is that there is a lot of middlemen that they have all the interest to make that arrangement that doesn't work. It's the same situation when, unfortunately, you divorce from a friend, let's say from a friend, and then all the ecosystem around, instead to help to keep that relation at least in the civil way, they started to only identify the issues that there is, to increase that gap. So that is the reason because I appreciate a meeting like that, because that is one to build a bridge again or to keep that bridge open. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you to you, Maurizio. I'm conscious about the time and we're running late only of 8 minutes. So a couple of questions and then who wants to reply and then we go to conclusion. Because everybody, all the 5 sectors, actually, you said really interesting things. One is the logistic and the necessity to restructure the chain of the value. Luca Botter from the wine side, but even you, Emanuele, that you try to retain the customers, or Natalina, of course, you had the issue of Brexit in compliance term, and now with these new rules that I was studying 2 weeks ago. It's quite interesting how it changed. So I agree with Maurizio. It's we have to avoid the divorce scenario, but we have to cooperate because there is a lot to do together between Italy and the UK. So the first one is the structure of the business. The second one is about, as Mr. Barclay say, high-skilled talents. So there is a situation where Brexit with the new visa is getting more difficulties on hiring talents. We know as well as Belluzzo, no? Before it was very easy to move people from Europe to UK and vice versa. Now we have to look at the world. So in terms of human capital, in terms of restructuring the business, so passing from ex-works to FCA, as Luca conveniently said, what is change? And then I go very broad to Andrea, last but not least, Do you think that London will cope with Paris, New York, and Shanghai in order to become and to stay, to retake the leadership? Because you say a drop of tourism of 1 million, so it's quite an important number. So going back very quickly, Emanuele and Luca, if you want to comment on the possibility to restructure the business, how to be multi-chain in this new environment.
Well, from our parts, it's not a big matters, because as I said, we are well included in the retailer, so it's about maybe food service to increase something and to work on the online sales, but we are also in Ocado, and we are making an e-commerce in Ocado related to the Italian foods company. So there are no major issues about us. And also for the HR, we have only a few people and UK based, so it's not a problem.
Okay. Luca, I don't see you if you are there.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, as a company, I think we have to look at all the possible future opportunities, and most probably, if you want to have an impact with some of the retailers in the UK, you would probably need to open up VAT numbers and a company account, bank account in the UK to facilitate paperwork and business relations with the chains. And that's what's happening already with some of them. Not, the ones that are not interested in organizing themselves all the paperwork and the export. Maybe it could be an opportunity for company like yours, for advisor to help the businesses in Italy that wants to pursue that kind of road and be more present in the UK. But that's the only things that I can see in medium term if you want to deal with some part of the business. Otherwise, I think we will certainly not open up warehouses or start up distribution networks in the UK, because we are not doing it also in other markets. I mean, this is not part of our business. Our business is to make wine and to sell it, not to get into the distributions, especially in a country that is quite complex, where there are duty involved, where you need to deal with bonded warehouses and things like that. But opening up a UK presence, I think, could be a possibility and an easy opportunity to take on.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Luca. So very quickly on human talents, Natalino and Maurizio.
Yeah, definitely on the human talents, something really important as a change has happened, especially the private equity industry has been traditionally a really face-to-face industry. So since the pandemic, actually, the first couple of months were quite a big change. It was the challenging part. And we have, of course, invested heavily on the IT infrastructure, but more specifically on the employees' mindset and cultural mindset on working from home in order to allow employees to work in a more efficient and safe setting. And I think this is going to be there even in the future. So virtual meeting has been extremely effective and have actually allowed to, in our case, for example, we closed two important transactions. One, it was the sale to a Danish fund. The other one, it was the acquisition of a power plant in Southern Europe with a UK investor. And we have done everything without meeting, which is quite impressive to think about it. So this virtual engagement will be there in the future, and it's actually taught us that you can also, and highlight the word also, do business without the need to be always there and travel there. So also from the talent attraction perspective, this opening more flexibility on where to go and attract this talent and these people without the need to be in a specific seat in a specific place. So this
Thank you.
we are seeing.
I have a couple of minutes more, and then I want to conclude with Massimo Carnellos. But Maurizio, what about talents? Now you have to hire people. What about this visa in the UK?
Well, Luigi, as I said before, it's not a problem of Brexit or for COVID. It's a problem of what is the idea of the government that we have. People like me that they are in UK and move to UK, be British UK citizen. We believe in capitalism, in fair competition, and in democracy. So a government that started to say how we have to employ or where we have to find our talents is something that we don't want it. We don't want it if it's the Her Majesty Queen government, as we don't want it that is European government. It's just another law that they are limited our decision. As soon as there is a law where they say that is the minimum that you have to pay a person, then I decide the talent that I want. I tell you, we have a global company, and in reality, the cost is a lot of, because to keep people, for example, from Australia, you have to guarantee that they earn £55,000. They don't care about anything. They don't care if you want to do educative. They don't care. If you don't guarantee that salary, you cannot import in the UK. And now it's 32 or 28, whatever is being fixed between Europe and the other, but then it will be higher and higher and higher. Also because whatever we say, people with money, India, China, Russia, they want to come in the UK because we have a democracy, we have a fair competition, and we have a rule of the law. So the point is Europe will not be able to compete with the money that others are going to bring in. So that is, but the issue is we don't like also from this government that I like personally, but we don't like this kind of limitation to our freedom as entrepreneurs.
Clear. So, Andrea, what's about London and the London we all love?
Yeah, so very briefly, I don't think that there is a standard playbook to deal with the current challenges. This being said, it would be sensible for every retailer to obviously pay attention on their top line in terms of how to bounce back in terms of sales level in respect to pre-COVID volumes of business. And the other one is obviously to focus and protect the bottom line. This just to say that if London wants to remain interesting on a global scale in terms of being a luxury destination, as opposed to Paris, Milan, or Munich, which are all very close, so it does not really make a big difference for a tourist to take another flight very short to get there. I think that there are two main things over which the government can really act and have an impact very quickly. The first one, which would allow to expand the top line of everyone's P&L, is obviously to review their tax refund legislation and go back to what was pre-Brexit, also taking into consideration that Europe is not going to change their approach. So that would only be to the detriment of the UK if they do not review their position. And the second thing would be to finally review the legislation regarding business rates, which is something that is long overdue now. It was supposed to happen last fall, then postponed to this spring, and then again postponed to the next autumn. So I think that by tackling these two topics, London would be on the right foot to remain on the luxury map.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I take also the opportunity to thank you very, very much for your time, your presence. I'd like to give now the word to Massimo Carnellos, because first of all, to thank again, once again, the embassy and you for being always so kind to be at our side in this kind of workshop, and not only, but then also if you can close the conference, which I read an optimistic view. Of course, everybody is concerned about many things because it is not a normal time we are living, but yeah, the light is, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So Massimo Carnellos, if you want to conclude this workshop, I'm more than happy to leave the word to you. And thank you, of course, to Jan Rogers, to Silvia, to Alessandro, to everybody for that.
Thank you, Luigi. Thank you, Alessandro. Well, let's finish with a note of optimism. As you say, there's lots of interesting points were raised, and many challenges ahead. I mean, we don't have to be over optimistic. We need to know what are heading for. Just probably last word, because it was mentioned again, Brexit. I mean, there's probably has been detected some acrimonies from the European Union side. I mean, the European Union have seen Brexit as a form of betrayal, let's call it like that, and a threat to the future of the Union. At the same time, you know, when you have a marriage that is dysfunctional, and maybe that was dysfunction from the UK, as was perceived from part of the UK public. Sometimes, you know, a divorce, a good divorce is better than a bad marriage. So let's look in at rebuild what we can rebuild, particularly on bilateral relations, which is our focus. And the probably most important thing is to try to manage these relations, Brussels, London, in a mature way. Just like when you have a divorce, you have to deal with your former partner in a mature way, trying to avoid, you know, the tit for tat provocation of any kinds, but definitely to deal to manage the relations in a as to all those we do, because it would be for sure beneficial to both parts in both communities. So I thank you for inviting me again, inviting the embassy, and best wish for everything.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck.
Alessandro, yes, if we can conclude.
Thank you for being here today, and we hope that we can meet again soon in person. Thank you very much to everyone. Bye.
Farewell, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, grazie.